Greetings, this is attorney author Herman Franck, and welcome to another session of Wife University. Thank you for returning. Today, I would like to talk about the subject of temptation and another subject that I have made up myself. Hey, we are allowed to make things up. It's called reverse temptation. And I want to talk about both of them because they're related topics, and of course, they will, infect and destroy a marriage. And so, people obviously need to be very careful about temptation. Let me start by just saying what it's about. Temptation, T-E-M-P-T-A-T-I-O-N, temptation, is where there is something very interesting, exciting, that interests you, and you are wanting to go and have it. So by way of example, if you walk by a store window and you see an amazing dress that just has the right colors, the right fabric, the right look, and you just love it, and you want it, and you walk into that dress store and they tell you, oh, look, sorry, that's for display only. We're not going to actually be selling that for a week. So you have to come back in a week. And every day you walk by that dress store and you look at that and you want it more and more and more. And you start to think about that dress all the time. And then you come back 7 days later and it's gone. The dress is gone. So you come in and you say, okay, I waited the 7 days. Now I want to buy that dress. And then the store lady says, oh, I'm so sorry to tell you, but some other person bought it. And then you just kind of have a meltdown and get all upset. What do you mean? I wanted it. How come I don't get it? I want that dress, This is all about temptation and a related subject called obsession. An obsession is just kind of an extreme level of desire where you just got to have something and, you're just kind of crazy about it. So what will happen, of course, in a marriage is you could be with a really good guy, or a guy could be with a really good gal, or you could be with a not so good gal or guy. So you can have a temptation in a good marriage, and there can be a temptation in a bad marriage. It can happen either way. There are women who have affairs on their husbands, even when the marriage is in a good way. There are, of course, men who have affairs on their wives, even when the marriage is in a good way. So that does happen. I mean, that may seem kind of odd to you, but let me assure you, I know many situations like that. Now, the other one, though, is where the marriage is in a bad way. Let's say that the husband and wife are fighting all the time. Maybe the man is angry at the wife, or the wife is angry at the husband. There could be like 100 different reasons. Maybe she is, he may be doing something that she does not like. I'll give you a simple example. I know a case involving this where the man was helping out a family relative with money. He would give the money, not a lot of money, but some money to the relative. And the wife was just endlessly angry about it because, the wife is very protective of the family. She wants the money to stay in the family. And the husband would be like, hey, I got to help them out. My family needs me too. And, I'm doing well, so I don't mind helping them. And they would argue and argue and argue about this. And they never really got to a point where they could reach an agreement. Like, one agreement I could see on that is, well, how about this? You get to give your family $200 a month, and I'm not going to worry about it. Can we agree to that? They never got to that point. Instead, it was just an endless fight about it. Well, it can happen in a situation like that. Let's say you're just fighting all the time, and you go to bed at night, and the two of you turn your back to each other. You're not even holding each other. You don't say goodnight. You don't say I love you. You don't make love. And then you wake up the next morning, and you just don't even say a word in the morning. You brush your teeth, he brushes his teeth, you guys just go your separate ways. If you continue in that way, both of you are going to be ripe like a fruit, for temptation. So if you as the woman, let's say you're in a business meeting or you're at work or you're shopping or whatever, and some nice situation comes up involving a man, you're going to be open for it. Let's face it. Now, I can tell you about this from firsthand experience. My ex-wife and I, we had endless trouble over many, many different things, to the point where we were not sleeping in the same room. We were not talking. I didn't like her. She didn't like me. And one day she's at the car repair shop, and she meets a guy. Now, had we been getting along in a perfect way, in a loving way, and everything was in a good way, this probably would not have been much of an opportunity. She probably would have said hi, whatever. But instead, she ended up giving the guy her phone number. And, that was kind of her first act of opening to him, is here's my phone number. Well, of course, he starts calling her, and they start talking and chatting and texting and sending each other photographs. Then they go out on kind of a group date and a few more dates, and then they start going out by themselves. And before you know it, it's a full-fledged affair. That was her temptation, okay? He's a younger guy, handsome guy, rich guy. I describe all this in the actually the beginning chapters of my book, Good Mom, Bad Wife. You can read about it there. But to make a long story short, she succumbed to the temptation. Succumb means when you give into it, because like the lady on the dress, that lady could walk right by that dress and say, I really want it, but you know what? I can't have it. It's too much money, and I'm not going to do it. And she just keeps walking, okay? So she can kind of fantasize about it maybe and imagine how she would look in that dress, but she's not going to have that dress and not really going to get it. So that's where you have a temptation that you don't succumb to. And you may not even obsess over it. The next day she may not ever think of that dress again. It becomes a problem when you really, 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 really want it. You just got to have it. You think about it all the time. And in the case of a man, if you're a woman, if the man starts chasing you, and men will do that. Men are aggressive. If they like you, they're going to come after you. It may be hard for you to say no, because here's a man paying a whole lot of attention to you, and he'll say really sweet things to you, and he's going to notice everything about you, and he's going to be listening to you as you talk about your life. And he's going to be like, wow, you're wonderful. Look at you. God, you're so special and unique, and I'm so lucky to know you, and how did I get so lucky to find you? Well, you're going to be, meanwhile, you got like this really cold situation going on at home with your husband, so you're going to be tempted by that. And you may get really tempted by it, and you may get to the point where you do what my ex-wife did, which is start going out on dates with him, and before you know it, you're spending the night at his house. And then you have a whole affair going on, and it starts with something called an emotional affair, where you're first just talking, chatting, giggling, laughing, sharing, lamenting, talking about how awful your husband is. He's telling you, maybe he's married. In my ex's case, the guy was also married. So he would talk to her about how he didn't like his wife, and she told him about how she didn't like her husband, and they had all this stuff going on, and it was just blah, 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 blah like that. So it begins as an emotional affair, and it slowly develops into what's called a physical affair. And I might add, sometimes it's not so slowly, because that whole process could be a matter of a month or 2 months, or in some cases it could be a night. So it just all kind of depends on the circumstances. But let's say it goes forward in this typical way. If it starts off as a pure emotional affair, and nowadays, with Skype and cell phones and Yahoo Messenger and Hotmail Messenger and WeChat and QQ, there's just so many ways now. And Facebook is a big one too. Here in USA, we have Facebook, and I know in China they have some social networking similar to Facebook. I forgot the name of it. I think there are 2 of them over there. But there obviously are a lot of different ways to connect up with people now, where the fact that you're in Beijing and the man you're interested in is in Shanghai, well, that's not going to be a problem. You get on WeChat, it's free. You can have a video call. You can see his face. He can see your face. You could have a 3-hour conversation, and then you could come back to your home and then go say hi to your husband, okay? And he is looking at you, and, you know, you're going to be impacted by that phone call. You know, if you just had a 3-hour phone call with another man, believe me when I tell you this, your conduct toward your husband would be different. I can tell you that when my ex had either a date or a discussion with her boyfriend, the impact on her mainly was she would come back to me in kind of a mean way. You know, she would look at me and go like, why can't you be like him? You know, you're just not the way I want you to be. And look at him. He's handsome. He's rugged. He's tough. He's strong. He's fancy. He wears these really fancy clothes. He's rich. He's younger than you. He makes a lot more money than you. And she would, as she does this comparison, it's kind of like I become a piece of garbage and he becomes like a god. And so there's a rudeness that comes about. So men often are kind of smart about that. We'll look at our wives and go, wow, you're rude. I wonder why you're rude. Especially if I didn't do anything bad, like, you know, yell at you or something. Then we figure it out. You went out on a date, didn't you? And we start to figure it out now. I can tell all men this. If you're noticing your wife or your girlfriend just for no reason at all is getting rude with you, she's probably got another guy. And what she's doing is she's comparing that other guy with you, and you just, whatever you do, it's not right, and whatever he does is perfect. This is a little bit of what happens in the biochemistry of love, and I'll be talking about that later, but one of the things that happens is the chemicals released in your wife's body when she meets this new guy get her into this really excited state about the new guy and get her into a really angry state about you. And you could get a promotion to become CEO of the largest company in the USA, and it wouldn't matter. You're still a piece of garbage to her. And the guy could have like multiple crime convictions, jail terms. He could be the biggest liar in the world, and he's going to be like the most beautiful man ever to her. And it's kind of a losing proposition for you to try to beat that out. In fact, most of the people that talk about this issue, the relationship experts, their advice for people in that is to do nothing because there's nothing you can do. I don't really believe in that. I think there is something you can do, and I think just letting it go is not the right way. But I'll talk about that more later. That was also, I would like to tell you, the subject of my other book called How to Marry and Keep a Supermodel, which chronicled the collapse of my marriage and how she went out and found this perfect guy, and then my series of attempts to win her back. I really tried hard to get her back. The book is kind of a comedy of errors because I can tell you everything I did not work. So it was kind of like, okay, try this. But the good news is that all those things I tried to do actually kind of made me better. And as I became better, the good news is at least I became more attractive to others, and I was able to find another person and kind of move on that way. So anyway, I'll talk about that more later. That was not the subject that I wanted to get into today. I wanted to mainly tell everyone about temptation and the concept that it is generally seen as bad, evil, terrible. Don't succumb to it. Don't do it. It's awful. And if you do it, you're a bad person and a low person, and you should be ashamed of yourself. This, of course, is the general concept about temptation, that we're not supposed to do it. Well, I'm here to disagree with that. I will probably upset many people when I say that. I don't buy into that at all. I look at temptation. First of all, I want to go back to my general thesis of life. I look at everything as a product of nature and Mother Nature. And I look at ourselves and the way we are as the product of nature. And I want to remind you of what I've said in other sessions is that Mother Nature is the smartest woman on the planet. She's made Earth. She has done it in a certain way that is actually quite brilliant if you look at it all. All you have to do is take a first-level high school class in biology, and you will just be blown away by the way the frog works. I mean, you could just study a frog and you'll be amazed. let alone the human body, just the physical body. But then when you get into the emotional aspects, and then when you study our biochemistry and all those aspects, you have to just stand back and say, wow, we are really something. And I really believe this, that Mother Nature did not mean for us to fight temptation. And of course, religious people will say, oh, it's the devil. Well, I want you to, when you hear about it's the devil, I want you to laugh at that. That's like a cartoon, like look at the devil. He's a red man with a tail and horns, and he has a spear, and supposedly he just goes around and tells people to do terrible things. Well, that's a bunch of bull. I mean, have you ever seen anybody like that running around town? No, you haven't. He's completely made up. And it's an excuse given in the Christian world, and I think most religions have some kind of a person like the devil in it, but in the Christian world, he's called Satan, and there's a whole story behind him, and let's just say it's 100% made up. It's a bunch of bull, and it's amazing how grown people, it's kind of like believing in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, Satan. It's just bull, and people should never be in the business of saying, I did something wrong and the devil made me do it. It's just not, what you're doing is you're not taking responsibility for your own conduct. You did it, not the devil, okay? And I want to even go a step further. If you want to say there's a God, that God gave you the hormones and the chemicals in your body and a system of release of those hormones and chemicals to make you want and to be tempted. Number one, who made, in other words, who made these temptations? Like the guy that tempted my wife, okay, he's a tall guy, 6'3". Sorry, I don't know what that is in centimeters, but it's tall. It's like north of 185. Okay, handsome guy, strong guy, and a rich guy. Okay, well, where did he come from, right? Well, there's a theory in the Bible, and it's not my job here to teach religion, but I want to say if you believe in this, that God is the maker of all things. The devil did not make that man. God made that man. But he didn't just make that man. He also made in my wife a biochemical release system where when she saw him, her eyes, her nose, her ears, her skin, everything reacted in a way that actually produced a chemical that got into her brain and made her a little bit goofy. She started to flirt. She started to fluff her hair. She started to touch her face. Next thing you know, she's given a perfect stranger her phone number, okay? Well, that's not the devil at work. That's God at work. He wanted her to do that. It's not like he's putting that temptation out there to say, don't do it, don't do it. Instead, he's putting it there, and then he's giving a biochemical release system, which is almost like a mandate, an order, do it. He's not saying don't do it, he's saying do it. So look at temptation as a good thing. The Bible and everyone in religion says that they're terrible, awful, oh my God, you're going to destroy the family, you're going to do awful things, you'll regret your decision. That's just a lot of people who are trying to make a case that when somebody dumps them, they're being evil. And I want to say this about that. If I've had many examples where women have dumped my ass, okay, and they say, see ya, that's not evil. If a girl calls me up and says, look, it's not going to work. I don't want you. I mean, maybe we could be friends, but you're not going to be the one. And believe me when I've told you this, I've had this happen to me. I chronicle that as well in my book, Good Mom, Bad Wife. Girl number 2 that I describe in that book, who saved me from my ex-wife, totally dumped me, okay? And in the end, I mean, she's just like, you know what? Here's a great quote. You're not the one. Okay. Well, as I told her, it was devastating. It broke my heart. But at the same time, you must know it's not evil. In other words, that's just her making a choice. And that choice is kind of an issue of, you could just call it freedom. Like, shouldn't we all have a freedom to say, I want that guy or that girl, right? I mean, or should we have something that says, no, You can't have that guy or that girl. It's terrible. It's evil. You're bad. You're shameful. You'll go to hell. The devil will burn you. You'll live an eternity in hell if you do that. Well, that's bull, okay? That's just bull. And if it were really that way, and God was really like that, then he wouldn't make these temptations, okay? And also, he wouldn't give us this biochemical hormonal response to those temptations, where a woman will look at a guy, and all of a sudden her finger goes into her mouth. She doesn't even know she's doing it. And she starts to breathe, and her breathing goes heavier, and her mouth opens, and her tongue kind of comes out, and her mouth gets filled with spit. It gets watery. She's not making that on her own volition. In other words, it's not her conduct. It's not like getting up from a table and walking away. This is just stuff that happens in the body when you don't have control over it. Well, who gave her all that? Who gave her that wet mouth, that hormonal response, the biochemical reaction that made her just goofy and made her want her put her finger in her mouth and take her tongue out? Where does all that come from? Okay? And so I would say Mother Nature. That would be my belief system. And I'm not trying to proselytize, which is where you persuade someone that your religion is the right one. If you want to be a Buddhist, if you want to be Jewish, if you want to be Muslim, if you want to be Christian, if you want to be an animist, which is kind of like a Hmong basis, or a shamanistic, or a Native American, or whatever you want to be is fine with me. I have chosen Mother Earth and Mother Nature as my goddess. But that's just me, okay? And I'm saying whatever the God is, whoever the creator is, and made all this stuff, well, let's just agree, it's simply brilliant. It's amazing how clever, and it's just so intricate. I mean, if you want to really get a proof of it, go watch anything being born. As I've said in other sessions, I grew up on a ranch. I've seen horses born, cows born, rabbits born. I've seen all kinds of things be born, dogs as well, and it's amazing. It's just when you see that, you walk away from that going, "Wow! I can't even believe that I can't believe a baby cow just came out of that cow, or a baby horse just came out of that horse." So you realize that this system is quite amazing. Well, part of that system is attraction, and what you could call animal attraction, where you attract like animals, and you just want, and that's it. There's just no two ways about it. And when you have that animal attraction, it's very common that you can't have it for somebody else. So if you are attracted to a man, or a man's attracted to a woman in a really kind of raw, animalistic way, that's temptation. Probably you're not going to go back home to see your husband and still want to have sex with him. You'll probably be done with that. Like, no, I'm not in the mood. You're thinking about the other guy, and the guy could be the same. It's like, no, I don't want you tonight. You're thinking about the other woman. So you can't. It's kind of hard to make love to your spouse when you are tempted by another. Now, I'm sure there are people who can still do that, but I'll tell you something else. The other partner will probably figure it out. It's like, honey, you don't seem all there tonight, or that could go either way. The woman, who's probably more sensitive to it, will see that in her man, like, wow, you're not all here tonight. What's going on? So the concept here I want to give you is temptation as being the product of Mother Nature or God, and it was meant to be. So I'm, and as I said earlier, I'll probably upset many people, but I'm saying to you, don't just walk by temptation and look at it as evil. It may be that that's the right person for you. Now, it may not be, but it's just like walking by that dress. That dress may be the perfect dress for you, and if you would finally get it, you would put it on, and people would look at you, and maybe something will happen in your life. Who knows, right? So for those of you who are kind of living in the doldrums, and you're in what we call a rut, where you kind of do the same thing over and over again, and you're not that into your marriage, and you're not that into your husband, and everything kind of goes forward in its little boring, uneventful way, and then all of a sudden you got like an opportunity. Most people would teach you, don't do it, it's bad, it's terrible, you will be a bad person. But I would tell you, look, are you a bad wife because you don't really love your husband, you're in this rut, you're not being a good wife? How long do you want to continue like that? Because look at the other side of it. It's like, I would rather just stick in this kind of nowhere marriage. Now, a lot of times, let me back up and explain something. A lot of times in movie dramas, they'll have a situation where the marriage is actually an amazingly good marriage. You know, the husband and wife, they know each other very well, and they're kind of like equal in every way. They love each other. The husband respects the wife, is madly in love with her, can't wait till she gets home and say, I love you, I love you, I love you, and buys her little presents. And like during his lunchtime break, he goes out and, you know, buys her a little flower and brings it home. And honey, I was thinking about you today. And she says, oh, I love you so much. And then we see her going out and being tempted by another man. And everyone in the movie theater is like, no, no, don't do it. That's a bad man. And you've got a great husband, and stay with your husband. And we're all cringing as she just gets seduced by this evil rich guy. And it turns out that he's some kind of a really bad devil. And she ends up losing the guy who's a player. And she also loses her husband and ends up being alone forever. And everyone says, see, I told you so. Well, let me just say that that's kind of sort of like not how it really happens, okay? If there's a really solid marriage and everything is really good, it would be pretty unusual that a temptation would lure one of them away. It can happen. I will absolutely agree with that. I've seen it go like that, but that's not kind of a common thing. But let's suppose it does happen that way, or however it happens. The bottom line is somebody is tempted away. It's always shown in like the movies where the guy tempting away is like an evil bad guy, and he's just gonna kind of like eat her up and spit her out and throw her out into the ocean, and she will leave like a really solid marriage for a player, a cheater, abuser, and then she'll be left in the street with nobody. Well, that can happen. I can tell you right away. That was kind of the story in a lot of ways of my ex-wife, and her lover. He was kind of like that. He's a guy that would basically get married women. For some reason, that was his thing. He liked married Chinese women that he would lure away from their husbands, seduce them, sleep with them. Of course, their husbands would find out. And when they did, the husband would divorce the wife, but then he was married himself, so he would never marry the girl. And so the end story of that is the poor woman is left with nobody. She's single, divorced. She is shamed. Everyone in the community knows what happened. She walks around with her head low, and all she can ever think of is, I'm a bad person. You know, I'm a bad guy. Well, nobody really gives her any due credit for the fact that she succumbed to temptation that, in my way of thinking, she was supposed to succumb to. In other words, that's really what she wanted. She wanted a tall, dark, successful, rich guy that had a hard body and a lot going on and would compliment her endlessly. You know, that's what she wants, you know, and it's almost like you want to turn to her husband and say, hey, why don't you try to be more like that guy? You know, you don't compliment your wife. You don't pay attention to her. You don't go out during your lunch hour and buy her a flower. You don't do anything. And you just come home and expect her to have dinner ready for you and take care of the kids and get them all in bed and everything's perfect while you're sitting on your ass watching TV, reading the newspaper, doing nothing. So it's kind of like a wake-up call. The cool thing about temptations is that they can be a major wake-up call in a marriage. So let me give you the first plus side of a temptation, is that a lot of times, first of all, a lot of times they can be short-lived. Like with my ex, her whole thing was about a 1-year thing, which is not so short, I might add. But it ended not because of all my efforts to end it, and I did like everything under the sun that you could do, and it totally didn't work, but it did end on its own. You know, and a lot of times these relationships have their beginning, they have a middle, and they have an end, like so many relationships do. And then the question becomes, after the end of it, is what do you do? What does the marriage do? Do you take each other back? You know, and that's a tough one because a lot of times a man is like, oh, no, you're... I learned this from a Chinese girl I met. When I told her this story, she said, you are wearing a green hat. There's this green hat idea that if you're a man and your wife or girlfriend is cheating on you, you have a green hat. Well, let me tell you, I got a big green hat, okay, and I walk around with a green hat on. By the way, I want you to know I actually do own a green hat. And if you ever meet me, you're going to see me in my green hat. I'm told that, most people in China would never wear such a hat. They would be shamed by it. It's kind of like you obviously are some kind of a pathetic guy, because if you were any kind of a man, your wife would not have gone out on you, would not have cheated on you. And I look up and I say, well, then I'm a pathetic guy, because let me just tell you, my wife cheated on me, and that's that, okay? And, I don't really make apologies for me being a victim. And, I would, any woman who would look down at me for being a victim, I would just say, well, whatever, so go away. I don't need any woman judging me on that, and whatever, it's like, I'm a victim. What can you do? I also am a man who knew that there were many shortcomings in my marriage, and I take full responsibility for my side of it. I've said this on my TV show, East-West Marriage. I've said it in writing in my books. I know what I did and what I didn't do. I know. And I have acknowledged that. I have said it. I've confessed to it. I have apologized to my wife, even after she had an affair. And by the way, she would never say I'm sorry for her affair. But I did say to her I was sorry for creating such a cold, unloving marriage that literally drew her into the arms of this temptation. And as she told me, and these are words I just totally believe, if it wasn't him, it would have been somebody else. In other words, when that circumstance is there, you've got a wife who is upset, you have a marriage that's kind of in the doldrums. The temptation can happen anywhere. I mean, for her, it was at a Mercedes-Benz dealership here in California, in Sacramento. And it was as random as she's waiting out on a park bench that they have when you wait for your car to come up, and he was there waiting for his car. Okay, that's just a random spot. That could have happened at a shopping mall. It could have happened at a school function. It could have happened at a sports game. It could have happened at a club. There's like a million different places where opportunity can come up. So if it didn't happen there, it would have happened somewhere else. And it's not because it's like 1 in a million odds he was there. It was because of the way our marriage was at the time. It sucked. It was not good. And, lucky for her, there was no woman interested in me. I mean, I don't have a problem when women walk up to me and say, hey, baby, you look hot. We men don't have that issue. Women have that issue. We don't. So no woman was trying to pick me up. I will tell you, back then, if some woman did, I would have been totally open to it. Like, please save me from my cold, angry, bitter, negative, hyper insulting, put down every second wife. Save me, And what happens with these temptations, it can wake a man up or a woman up. Unfortunately, women usually look at that kind of stuff and they just go crazy. And they look at the man and they say, you are a terrible, evil man. You're cheating, you piece of garbage. But the reality is she's been a bad wife, okay? And it's like, hey, why don't you wake up to what you have not been doing? If your husband cheats on you, okay, so why did he do that? Why would he rather be with another woman? Especially, and I've seen this time and time again, where the woman he is cheating on is less beautiful than you, okay? So you can look at the girl he ends up with, and you're like, I'd rather be with her than me. In my ex's case, she was at the time 38. His wife was 28. I remember the wife was telling me when I met her, and she said, wow, your wife is 38. She's 10 years older than me. My husband is having an affair with a woman 10 years older. And the thing about it is what a person has to offer to you as an affair is just totally different than this marriage. I mean, he just, of course, I just want to point this out. I have seen it. A lot of women I've met have sent me photos of the woman that their ex-husband cheated with, and dumped her. And I will also tell you, I have a kind of objection, if I can sound legalistic, to this word cheating. I look at it as moving on. It's like he didn't cheat on you. He found a new woman and left you and ended up with that new woman. So you can call it cheating. I call it sexual competition, and guess what? You lost. So don't forget, we're still in the law of the jungle here, whether you like it or not. We're still animals, and animals have to fight for the right to mate. And that fight doesn't last 1 year or 2 years. It lasts a lifetime. You don't just take one battle and say, well, I won him, so that means I can become a fat cow, bitchy ass, lazy piece of smelly garbage, and he's still going to stay with me. Wrong. Okay, let me just tell you, wrong. And if you want to complain about that, let me just tell you that don't complain to me, don't complain to your husband, don't complain to your husband's new wife. Complain to our Maker, okay? Your complaint should go to God, should go to Mother Nature, should go to Muhammad, should go to Jesus, wherever. But it shouldn't come to another human, because we are not responsible for the creation of this system. We didn't make all this system up. A greater power did, and you just lost it. You're in a battle for the right to mate, and you lost. And there's nothing evil in that. It's more like survival of the fittest. And that woman stole your husband away, and she did so because guess what? She's better than you. If she were not better than you, he wouldn't go for her, okay? Because we men, we want the best girl we can get. So imagine imagine a guy like me. I'm with like this beauty queen, literally, okay? She's Mrs. Asia, California, stunningly gorgeous, extremely talented, well-spoken. And let me tell you, you can have her. She's the biggest bitch you ever saw. She's rude. She puts me down at every second of the day. And I absolutely don't want her. I mean, she would look at a girl I would prefer, and she would be like, oh, this girl doesn't look pretty. She's not lovely. I'm way hotter than her. And I would say, yeah, but there's a big difference. She doesn't call me a piece of garbage every 5 seconds, okay? And that goes a long way. So what's better or not better, they say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but I almost want to say in the ears of the beholder. It's what I hear that draws me away from my wife, not what I see. As I've told her many times, you'll never hear me complain about your looks. She looks hot. She's gorgeous. It's what she says that draws me away from her. And it is what these other women have said to your husband that has drawn him away from you. And the problem is you. It's not him cheating. It's you. You're not being a good wife. You are not saying to him the things he wants you to say. And he's probably begged you to say them. He's probably said it a million times. Why don't you not do this? Why don't you not do that? Why don't you stop this? Why don't you stop that? I know in my case, I begged my wife a billion times to just shut up and quit insulting me. I'm going to leave you. I just told her many, many times, the ultimate humiliation, insult a wife can give to a man is to be sleeping with another man, and to do it openly and publicly, bring the man to the house, do it all in a way that's like right in your face. Well, in that situation, I don't think we're meant to stay together. I don't think our Maker, God, Mother Nature, whatever, would intend us to be together. But I can also tell you at the same time that within all that temptation that she succumbed to, it was a big wake-up call where we did try to make amends with it and attempted to better things. When I say that, let me give you an example of what we did. First of all, we went to a marriage counselor, and we met, I think, 8 times or so at a local Chinese Christian church. Very helpful. I encourage all people to do marriage counseling. I'm a big proponent of it, a big supporter of it. These people, as I've said elsewhere, are trained professionals in the United States. We have a licensing program where they have to go have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in psychology. Here in California, you have to do 2,000 hours of work in the field, and then you take a big exam, and then you get a license, and then normally you go work for somebody, and you listen to a lot of people and their problems, and you try to help them find solutions. And I also want to say that I don't pretend to be one myself. I am not one. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm a licensed attorney. They do not teach us about saving marriages in law school, let me guarantee you. Instead, they teach us how to help people get a divorce, like, our training is almost just the opposite. But I want to let you know, though, that one of the things we did as a wake-up call to her temptation and succumbing to it was we went and saw a marriage counselor. The problem, though, became, it's like she just did not like who I was.